The faint glow of Jack Thorne's headlamp cut through the oppressive darkness, illuminating the graffiti-covered walls of the abandoned subway tunnel. His breath came out in small, visible puffs in the cool underground air as he adjusted his camera, ensuring his live stream audience could see every detail of his latest urban exploration. "All right, explorers!" Jack's voice echoed slightly in the confined space, a mix of excitement and caution in his tone. "Welcome to another Thorn in the Dark adventure. We're about to venture deeper into the old Westfield line than anyone has gone in decades." He grinned at the camera, his blue eyes twinkling with mischief beneath his disheveled brown hair. At 28, Jack had become something of a legend in the urban exploration community. His live streams were famous for uncovering hidden aspects of the city that most people never saw. Now, for those of you just joining us, Jack continued, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. Legend has it that this section of the subway was sealed off back in the 60s due to what officials called structural issues. But you know me, folks. I never buy the official story. As Jack moved deeper into the tunnel, the chat on his live stream exploded with activity. His moderator and best friend, Emma Carter, kept him updated on the most interesting comments. Jack, Dark Explorer 22 says, "There's supposed to be a maintenance shaft about 100 yards ahead on your left." Emma's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Might be worth checking out." "Thanks, Em," Jack replied, his eyes scanning the walls. "You heard the lady, folks. Let's see if we can find this mysterious shaft." As he approached the area described, Jack's mind wandered to the events that had led him to this moment. It had been 10 years since his sister Sarah disappeared without a trace. 10 years of searching, of diving into the hidden corners of the world, hoping to find some clue to her whereabouts. He remembered the last conversation they had, the night before she vanished. Sarah had been excited about a new job, something she couldn't tell him much about. "It's going to change everything, Jack," she had said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I'm going to be part of something bigger than you can imagine." The next day, she was gone. No note, no explanation. Just gone. Jack shook off the melancholy thoughts. This wasn't the time for dwelling on the past. His followers were here for adventure, for the thrill of discovery, and he was determined to give them exactly that. "You know, guys," Jack said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, "every time I step into a place like this, I can't help but think about all the stories these walls could tell, the lives that passed through here, the secrets that were whispered in the darkness." He ran his hand along the grimy wall, feeling the rough texture beneath his fingers. It's like touching a piece of living history. And who knows, maybe today we'll uncover a story that's been waiting decades to be told. Suddenly something caught his eye, a slight discoloration in the concrete wall, forming an almost imperceptible pattern. "Hold up," Jack murmured, moving closer. "This is interesting." He ran his hand along the wall, feeling for any irregularities. Suddenly, his fingers caught on something, a small, hidden latch. With a grunt of effort, Jack pulled, and to his astonishment, a section of the wall swung open like a door. "Holy shit," he breathed, his heart racing. "Em, are you seeing this?" "Crystal clear, Jack," Emma replied, her voice tight with excitement. "The chat's going crazy! What is that?" Beyond the hidden door lay a narrow corridor, the walls smooth and clearly maintained. Unlike the decrepit tunnel behind him, this passage showed no signs of age or abandonment. "I don't know," Jack said, his voice hushed with awe, "but we're about to find out." As he stepped through the doorway, a faint humming reached his ears. The air felt different here, fresher somehow. Jack's light revealed metallic panels lining the walls, covered in strange symbols unlike any he'd seen before. "This is unreal," Jack whispered, panning his camera to capture every detail. "It looks like some kind of maintenance tunnel, but it's like nothing I've ever seen. Those symbols, they're not any kind of industrial markings I recognize." He zoomed in on one of the symbols, a complex arrangement of curved lines and dots. "It's almost like a language, but nothing I've ever encountered before. What do you guys think? Drop your theories in the chat." Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the corridor. The floor beneath Jack's feet vibrated slightly. "Did you guys feel that?" Jack asked, a note of unease creeping into his voice. "Something's happening." As if in response, lights flickered to life along the corridor, bathing everything in a soft, blue glow. Jack switched off his headlamp, blinking as his eyes adjusted. "Jack," Emma's voice came through, tinged with worry. "Maybe you should turn back. This doesn't feel right." But Jack was already moving forward, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. "I can't, Em. This is the discovery of a lifetime. I have to know where this leads." As he progressed, the corridor widened, opening into a vast, circular chamber. Jack's jaw dropped at the sight before him. The chamber was a hub of activity, filled with people dressed in strange, uniform-like clothing. They moved purposefully among what appeared to be advanced computer terminals and unfamiliar machinery. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," Jack whispered, his voice filled with awe. "It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. There are people down here, dozens of them. And this technology, it's like nothing I've ever seen before." For a moment, no one noticed Jack. He took the opportunity to pan his camera around, capturing as much of the incredible scene as possible. "Em, are you getting all this? Please tell me you're recording." "Every second, Jack," Emma replied, her own voice filled with disbelief. "But what is all this? How can something like this exist right under our city?" Before Jack could respond, a young man with tousled brown hair looked up, his eyes widening in shock as they locked onto Jack and his camera. "Intruder!" the man shouted, pointing directly at Jack. "Security breach in Sector 7. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Alarms blared, and people rushed in all directions. Jack, his heart pounding, turned to run back the way he came, but found his path blocked by two burly individuals in what looked like security uniforms. "Don't move," one of them commanded, raising a strange-looking device that Jack assumed was a weapon. "Whoa! Whoa!" Jack raised his hands, trying to appear non-threatening. "Look, this is all just a big misunderstanding. I'm an urban explorer. I accidentally found this place. I don't mean any harm." "Em," Jack said, his voice shaky, "I think I'm in trouble. If anything happens to me, tell my family I love them." As the security personnel approached, Jack's live stream suddenly cut out, leaving his viewers and Emma in stunned silence. In that moment of darkness, a flood of memories washed over Jack. He saw Sarah's face on the day she disappeared, heard her laugh, felt the weight of the emptiness she'd left behind. Was this connected somehow? Had he finally stumbled upon the truth he'd been seeking for so long? "Wait!" A commanding voice rang out across the chamber. The guards stopped in their tracks, and the crowd parted to reveal an elegant older woman striding towards them. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her piercing green eyes fixed on Jack with an intensity that made him shiver. "I am Dr. Evelyn Mason," she announced, her voice crisp and authoritative. "And you, young man, have just walked into a place you should not be." Jack swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. I'm Jack Thorne. I'm an urban explorer, and I accidentally found this place. I swear I meant no harm." Dr. Mason's eyes narrowed as she studied him. "An accident, you say? Perhaps. But now that you're here, we have a serious problem on our hands." The young man who had first spotted Jack pushed forward. "Dr. Mason, we can't just let him go. He was live streaming everything." Jack's blood ran cold. He had completely forgotten about the live stream in the chaos of the moment. Dr. Mason's expression darkened. "Is this true, Mr. Thorne?" Jack nodded, his mouth dry. "Yes, but it cut out when your alarms went off. I swear!" The doctor sighed heavily. "This complicates things considerably. Take him to Containment Room 3. We need to discuss this privately." As the guards led Jack away, he caught snippets of urgent conversations around him. Words like surface dwellers, the event, and compromised security floated through the air, each one adding to the growing mystery of this underground world. Jack's mind raced. What was this place? How long had it been here, hidden beneath the city? And most importantly, could it hold the key to finding Sarah? As the door to Containment Room 3 closed behind him, Jack realized that his life had just changed forever. His greatest adventure, and possibly his greatest nightmare, was only just beginning. The containment room was small but surprisingly comfortable, with a bed, a desk, and even a small bathroom. Jack paced nervously, his mind racing with questions. What was this place? Why was it hidden? And what would happen to him now? He couldn't help but think of his viewers, of Emma. What were they thinking? Had they alerted the authorities? Or would they assume this was all part of some elaborate hoax? Hours passed, each minute feeling like an eternity. Jack examined every inch of the room, looking for, well, he wasn't sure what. A hidden camera? A secret passage? Anything to make sense of this surreal situation. Finally, the door opened, revealing Dr. Mason and the young man from earlier. "Mr. Thorne," Dr. Mason began, her tone measured. "We've been monitoring the surface networks. It appears your live stream did indeed cut out before you revealed anything. Sensitive. However, we cannot simply let you go." The young man stepped forward, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "I'm Liam Foster. I've been tasked with, well, I suppose you could call it orientation." Jack's eyebrows shot up. "Orientation? You mean you're not going to kill me or something?" Dr. Mason actually chuckled at this. "My dear boy, we're not barbarians, but we can't risk our existence becoming known to the surface world. Not yet, so you have a choice to make." Liam continued, "You can stay with us, learn about our society, and become a part of it. Or, well, let's just say the alternative involves extensive memory modification." Jack's mind reeled at the implications. Stay in this mysterious underground world or have his memories erased? It was an impossible choice. "Hold on," Jack said, raising his hands. "You can't just drop something like that on me and expect an immediate answer. I have questions, a lot of questions." Dr. Mason nodded, her expression softening slightly. "That's fair. What would you like to know?" Jack took a deep breath. "Okay, first things first. What is this place? How long has it been here, and why?" Dr. Mason exchanged a glance with Liam before answering. "This facility, Mr. Thorne, is the culmination of decades of work. We call it Haven. It was established in the late 1960s by a group of scientists, visionaries, and, well, let's call them concerned citizens." "Concerned about what?" Jack pressed. "The future." Liam chimed in. "Or rather, a potential future that they believed threatened the very existence of humanity." Jack's brow furrowed. "What, like nuclear war? Climate change?" "If only it were that simple," Dr. Mason sighed. "No, Mr. Thorne, the threat we face is far more exotic, but perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves. There's something else you should know." She paused, studying Jack's face intently. "We've been watching you, Jack. Your explorations, your curiosity, your drive to uncover hidden truths. In many ways, you remind me of myself when I was younger." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. "You've been watching me? But why?" Dr. Mason exchanged another glance with Liam before answering. "Because, Mr. Thorne, we believe you might be valuable to us. Your skills, your following on the surface, they could be useful in the times to come." Jack's heart skipped a beat. Could this somehow be connected to Sarah's disappearance? He decided to take a risk. "Does this have anything to do with my sister, Sarah Thorne? She disappeared 10 years ago." A flicker of something passed across Dr. Mason's face. Was it recognition? Guilt? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual composed expression. "I'm afraid I don't know anything about your sister, Mr. Thorne," she said smoothly. "But if you choose to stay with us, perhaps we can help you find answers." Jack studied her face, trying to detect any sign of deception, but Dr. Mason was unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "All right, I'll stay. But I want answers. About this place, about what you're doing here, about everything." "In time, Mr. Thorne," Dr. Mason replied. "In time. Liam, please show our new recruit to his quarters. His training begins tomorrow." As Liam led Jack through the winding corridors of the underground complex, the young explorer's mind was buzzing with thoughts. He needed to find a way to contact Emma, to let her know he was okay. And he had to uncover the truth about this place, and possibly about Sarah. "So, Liam," Jack said, trying to sound casual, "how long have you been down here?" Liam hesitated before answering. "I was born here, actually. A lot of us were." Jack nearly tripped in surprise. "Born here? But how is that possible? How big is this place?" Liam grinned. "Bigger than you can imagine, Jack. We're not just talking about a few rooms under the city. Haven is an entire world beneath the surface. We have hydroponics farms, manufacturing facilities, even recreational areas. It's a fully self-sustained society." As they walked, Jack's eyes darted everywhere, taking in every detail. The corridors were a mix of utilitarian efficiency and surprising beauty, with murals depicting fantastical landscapes and strange, alien vistas. "What are these paintings?" Jack asked, gesturing to one particularly striking image of a city with impossible, twisting architecture. Liam's expression grew serious. "That's part of what you'll learn during your training. Let's just say they represent possibilities. Possibilities we're working to understand and maybe even prevent. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Jack underwent intensive training, learning about the advanced technologies used by the underground society. He discovered that the complex was vast, spanning miles beneath the city, with different sectors dedicated to research, living quarters, and what they cryptically referred to as event preparation. One day, during a break in his training, Jack found himself in one of the hydroponics gardens. The sight of lush green plants thriving under artificial sunlight was both beautiful and unsettling. "Impressive, isn't it?" a voice said behind him. Jack turned to see Dr. Mason approaching. "It's incredible," Jack admitted, "but I still don't understand. Why go to all this trouble? What are you preparing for?" Dr. Mason's expression grew grave. "Walk with me, Mr. Thorne. It's time you learned the truth about the event." As they strolled through the garden, Dr. Mason began to explain. "Imagine, Jack, a threat so enormous, so incomprehensible, that it challenges everything we think we know about reality itself. That's what we're facing." She paused, letting her words sink in. In the 1960s, a group of scientists made a discovery. They found evidence of, let's call them, thinnings in the fabric of our universe, places where the boundaries between our reality and others were becoming dangerously weak. Jack's mind reeled. "Other realities? You mean like parallel universes?" "In a sense," Dr. Mason nodded. "But it's more complex than that. These other realities, they don't necessarily play by the same rules as ours. The laws of physics, the nature of time and space, they can be vastly different, and in some cases, incredibly hostile to our form of existence." She led Jack to a viewing window overlooking a massive chamber filled with strange, pulsating machinery. "This is the heart of our research. We're studying these thinnings, trying to understand them, and hopefully find a way to reinforce the barriers between realities." Jack's head was spinning. It all sounded so fantastical, like something out of a science fiction novel. And yet, the evidence was all around him. The advanced technology, the secrecy, the sense of urgent purpose that seemed to drive everyone in Haven. "But why keep it a secret?" Jack asked. "Shouldn't the world know about this?" Dr. Mason's expression darkened. "We tried that in the beginning. It led to panic, to chaos. People couldn't handle the truth, so we went underground, literally, to do what needed to be done." As the weeks turned into months, Jack's skills grew, and he began to earn the trust of some in the underground society. But the more he learned, the more questions he had. What was the true nature of the event they were preparing for? How close was it to happening? And why did he sometimes catch Dr. Mason looking at him with an expression that seemed almost guilty? Liam became a friend and ally, helping Jack navigate the complexities of his new life. But there was always a sense that Liam was holding something back, that there were secrets he wasn't allowed to share. One night, unable to sleep, Jack wandered into one of the research labs. He found Liam there, poring over complex equations on a holographic display. "Can't sleep either, huh?" Jack said, startling Liam. "Jack! I was just reviewing some data," Liam stammered, quickly shutting off the display. Jack's eyes narrowed. "Liam, we're friends, right? You can trust me. What's really going on here?" Liam sighed, his shoulders sagging. "It's complicated, Jack. There's so much you don't know, so much I'm not allowed to tell you." "Try me," Jack pressed. "I think I've proven I can handle some pretty weird stuff by now." Liam hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but not here. Meet me in Hydroponics Garden C in an hour. And Jack, be careful. There are eyes and ears everywhere in Haven." An hour later, Jack made his way to the designated garden, his heart pounding with anticipation. Liam was waiting for him, looking nervous. "Okay," Liam said in a low voice. "What I'm about to tell you, it could change everything. Are you sure you want to know?" Jack nodded firmly. "I'm sure." Liam took a deep breath. "The event, it's not just coming, it's already started. The thinnings Dr. Mason told you about, they're getting worse, and we've detected something on the other side, something that's trying to break through." Jack's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, something?" "We don't know exactly," Liam admitted, "but from what we can tell, it's intelligent and it's powerful. If it manages to fully cross over into our reality." He didn't need to finish the sentence. The implication was clear. It would be catastrophic. There's more, Liam continued. Some of us, we think Dr. Mason isn't telling us everything. There are restricted areas of Haven, experiments that only a select few are allowed to know about. And there are rumors. What kind of rumors? Jack pressed. Liam lowered his voice even further. Rumors that we're not just trying to prevent these entities from crossing over, that some in Haven want to communicate with them, maybe even work with them. Jack's mind was reeling. If what Liam was saying was true, the implications were staggering and potentially terrifying. Before he could respond, a familiar voice made him freeze. I'm disappointed in you, Liam. I thought you understood the importance of discretion. They turned to see Dr. Mason emerging from the shadows, her expression a mix of anger and, was that fear? Dr. Mason, I can explain. Liam began, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand. Save it, she snapped. Mr. Thorne, I think it's time we had a real talk about your place here in Haven and about the truth of what we're facing. As Dr. Mason led them away, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the verge of uncovering something monumental, something that would change not just his life, but potentially the fate of the entire world. Little did he know, the real revelations and dangers were yet to come. Dr. Mason led Jack and Liam through a series of corridors Jack had never seen before. The air grew colder, and the hum of machinery intensified as they descended deeper into the heart of Haven. What I'm about to show you, Dr. Mason said, her voice grave, is our most closely guarded secret, the real reason for Haven's existence. They entered a massive chamber, easily the size of a football stadium. At its center stood a colossal machine, a swirling vortex of energy pulsing at its core. This, Dr. Mason announced, is the Nexus, our window into other realities. Jack's jaw dropped. The machine was like nothing he'd ever seen, defying his understanding of physics and engineering. What does it do? Before Dr. Mason could answer, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, Warning, dimensional instability detected in Sector 9. All personnel evacuate immediately. Dr. Mason's face paled. No, not now. It's too soon. The ground beneath them shook violently. Equipment sparked and exploded around them as the tremors intensified. What's happening? Jack shouted over the chaos. The event, Liam yelled back. It's starting. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the pandemonium. Evelyn, we need you in the control room now. Jack turned to see a man he didn't recognize striding towards them. Tall and imposing, with salt and pepper hair and intense gray eyes, he radiated an aura of authority. Alexander, Dr. Mason acknowledged. What's the situation? It's worse than we predicted, the man, Alexander, replied grimly. The barriers are collapsing faster than we can reinforce them. We need to initiate Protocol Omega. Dr. Mason's eyes widened in shock. But we haven't tested it yet. The risks are nothing compared to what will happen if we do nothing, Alexander snapped. As they argued, Jack's attention was drawn to a strange distortion forming in the air near the Nexus. It shimmered and pulsed, growing larger by the second. Guys? Jack called out, pointing. I think we have a problem. The distortion exploded outward, and through it poured creatures that defied description. Twisted amalgamations of flesh and geometry, they screeched with voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Containment breach, Liam shouted, pulling out a strange-looking weapon. Jack, catch! Jack caught the device Liam tossed him, feeling its weight and unfamiliar contours. What am I supposed to do with this? Point and shoot, Liam yelled back, already firing at the invading entities. Bolts of energy streaked from the weapon, causing the creatures to dissolve into nothingness where hit. Chaos erupted as more security personnel flooded into the chamber, engaging the interdimensional invaders. Jack found himself in the middle of a war he never could have imagined, firing his weapon on instinct and watching in awe and horror as reality itself seemed to warp around them. We need to get to the control room, Dr. Mason shouted, gesturing for Jack and Liam to follow her. They fought their way through the melee, dodging tentacles and impossible geometries that threatened to tear them apart. As they ran, a familiar voice made Jack freeze in his tracks. Jack! Jack! He turned, his heart nearly stopping as he saw a face he hadn't seen in 10 years. Older, more weathered, but unmistakable. Sarah? He gasped, nearly dropping his weapon in shock. His sister's face was a mix of joy and terror. "Oh God, Jack, what are you doing here?" Before he could respond, one of the entities lunged at Sarah. Jack reacted on pure instinct, firing his weapon and watching the creature disintegrate mere inches from his sister. "Jack, come on," Liam called out. "We can't stay here." Grabbing Sarah's hand, Jack pulled her along as they raced after Liam and Dr. Mason. His mind was reeling. Sarah was here. She was alive. And whatever was happening, it was clear that the truth he'd been seeking was far more incredible and terrifying than he could have ever imagined. They reached the control room, a hive of frantic activity as scientists and technicians worked desperately to contain the interdimensional breach. "Status report," Dr. Mason barked as they entered. A harried-looking technician looked up from her console. "The breach is expanding exponentially, Doctor. At this rate, we'll lose containment within the hour." "Then we have no choice," Alexander said grimly. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Dr. Mason hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Do it." As the team scrambled to carry out the order, Jack pulled Sarah aside. "What the hell is going on? How are you here? What is all this?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to get involved in this, but now—" She glanced at the chaos unfolding around them. "Now you might be our only hope." Before Jack could ask what she meant, Alexander's voice rang out. "Energy buildup at 70% and rising. Prepare for Omega Pulse in T-2 minutes." The room shook violently, and through the observation window, Jack could see the Nexus spinning faster, its energy core blazing with impossible colors. "Jack!" Dr. Mason called out. "We need your help." He rushed over to where she stood by a complex control panel. "What can I do?" "Your explorations, your ability to navigate complex systems. They've prepared you for this moment," Dr. Mason explained quickly. "The Omega Protocol requires a precise sequence to activate, but the sequence is hidden, scattered throughout the facility's systems. You need to find it, Jack. Use everything you've learned." As the others held off the invading entities and prepared for the Omega Pulse, Jack's explorer instincts kicked into overdrive. He raced through the facility's digital systems, decoding hidden messages, solving intricate puzzles, each solution revealing a piece of the sequence. Time seemed to blur as Jack worked, the fate of two worlds resting on his shoulders. With each passing moment, the dimensional breach grew larger, the invading forces pushing harder against humanity's last line of defense. 30 seconds to Omega Pulse," Alexander shouted. "Jack, we need that sequence now!" With trembling hands, Jack input the final pieces of the code. The control panel hummed to life, its energy palpable in the air. "Sequence accepted." A technician called out, "Omega Pulse charging!" "Everyone, brace yourselves!" Dr. Mason shouted. A blinding light erupted from the Nexus, engulfing the entire chamber. The invading entities shrieked in agony as they were pulled back towards the breach. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist. Jack felt a hand grasp his and looked to see Sarah beside him, her face a mix of fear and determination. Together they watched as the light intensified, becoming almost too bright to bear. And then, silence. As the light faded, Jack found himself on the floor, his ears ringing. Slowly he stood, taking in the scene around him. The breach was gone, leaving behind a scarred but intact wall. Sarah rushed to him, enveloping him in a fierce hug. "You did it, Jack. You saved us all." As the dust settled and the immediate danger passed, Jack looked around at the faces of those who had fought alongside him, some familiar, some strange, all forever changed by this experience. But even as relief washed over him, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The breach might be closed, but the questions and dangers it raised were only beginning to surface. What were these entities, and why were they trying to enter our world? How long had Sarah been involved with Haven? And perhaps most importantly, what consequences would the Omega Pulse have on their reality and others? As cleanup efforts began and the inhabitants of Haven started to regroup, Jack realized that his greatest challenge, understanding and protecting the delicate balance between realities, was only just beginning. The aftermath of the Omega Pulse left Haven in a state of controlled chaos. As emergency systems whirred to life and the injured were tended to, Jack found himself in the heart of it all, still trying to process the incredible events he'd just experienced. Dr. Mason approached, her usual composure shaken but intact. "Mr. Thorne, Jack, I don't know how to begin to thank you. You've saved countless lives today, perhaps even our entire reality." Jack shook his head, still dazed. I'm not even sure I understand what just happened. Those creatures, the other realities, it's all so overwhelming." "I know," Dr. Mason said softly, "and I owe you a full explanation. We all do." She glanced at Sarah, who stood nearby, her eyes never leaving her brother. "Perhaps it's time we told you everything." Over the next few hours, as Haven slowly began to recover, Jack learned the full truth. The origins of Haven, the discovery of the thinnings between realities, and the desperate race to prevent what they called the convergence, a catastrophic merging of multiple realities that would destroy them all. "But why keep it all a secret?" Jack asked, his mind reeling from the revelations. "Surely the world deserves to know?" Alexander, who had joined them, spoke up. "Fear, Mr. Thorne. Can you imagine the panic if people knew how fragile the barriers between realities truly are? The chaos it would cause?" Jack frowned, not entirely convinced. "Maybe, but keeping people in the dark, it doesn't sit right with me." Sarah placed a hand on his arm. "It's not that simple, Jack. I've been struggling with this for years. The world isn't ready for this knowledge. Not yet." As they talked, Jack's thoughts turned to the surface world, to Emma, to his followers, to the life he'd left behind. "What about my live stream? My disappearance? People will be looking for me." Dr. Mason nodded. "We've been monitoring the situation. Your disappearance has indeed caused quite a stir. There are search parties, online campaigns. Your friend Emma has been particularly vocal." Jack's heart clenched at the mention of Emma. "I need to let her know I'm okay, somehow." "Perhaps," Dr. Mason said thoughtfully, "it's time we considered a new approach. The world may not be ready for the full truth, but maybe it's time we started preparing them." Alexander looked alarmed. "Evelyn, you can't be serious. The risks are nothing compared to the risk of being caught unprepared." Dr. Mason cut him off. "Today proved that. We need allies on the surface. People who can help us identify and respond to interdimensional anomalies. And who better to help us bridge that gap than someone who already has the public's trust and attention?" Jack's eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. "You want me to go back? To what? Become some kind of interdimensional ambassador?" Sarah squeezed his hand. "Who better than you, little brother? You've always had a gift for uncovering the truth and sharing it with the world. This would just be on a much larger scale." As Jack contemplated this new role, a thought struck him. "Wait, the Omega Pulse. What exactly did it do? Is the threat really over?" The room fell silent for a moment before Alexander spoke. "The Pulse closed the immediate breach and pushed back the invading entities. But it also had an unexpected effect. It seems to have created a kind of resonance." "What does that mean?" Jack asked, a sense of unease growing in his stomach. Dr. Mason sighed. "It means that while we've bought ourselves some time, we've also expanded our problem. The resonance is causing micro-breaches to form all over the world. Most are too small to allow anything through, but they're growing, slowly but steadily." Jack's mind raced with the implications. "So the threat isn't just here anymore, it's everywhere." "Exactly," Sarah nodded. "Which is why we need you, Jack. Your skills, your following, your ability to go places and see things we can't. You could be our eyes and ears on the surface." As Jack considered this new mission, he couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was bigger than anything he'd ever done, with stakes higher than he could have imagined. "All right," he said finally, "I'll do it. But on one condition." Dr. Mason raised an eyebrow. "And what might that be?" Jack's eyes narrowed with determination. "No more secrets. Not from me and not from the public. We tell them as much as we safely can. They deserve a chance to understand what's happening to their world." A tense moment passed as Dr. Mason considered his words. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, Mr. Thorne. It seems your influence on our operations has already begun. Welcome to the team." Over the next few days, Jack worked with the Haven team to craft his return story, a tale of getting lost in the tunnels, of a miraculous rescue, with just enough hints of something more to pique the public's curiosity without revealing too much. Finally, the day came for Jack to return to the surface. As he prepared to leave, Sarah hugged him tightly. "Be careful out there, Jack. And remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone in this." With a deep breath, Jack stepped out of Haven and back into the world he'd left behind. His mind was buzzing with all he'd learned, all he'd experienced, and the monumental task that lay ahead of him. As he emerged from the subway station, blinking in the bright sunlight, he spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Emma, her eyes red from lack of sleep, holding a fine Jack Thorne sign. "Emma!" he called out, his voice cracking with emotion. She turned, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Jack! Jack! Oh my God, you're alive!" As Emma rushed towards him, enveloping him in a fierce hug, Jack knew that his greatest adventure and humanity's greatest challenge was only just beginning. And there you have it, fellow explorers. The incredible, unbelievable tale of how one urban exploration led to the discovery of a lifetime and the saving of our world as we know it. But let me tell you, this is just the beginning. You see, the world around us is full of mysteries, secrets lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. And now, more than ever, we need to be vigilant, to keep our eyes open for the unexpected, the unexplained. But I can't do this alone. I need your help. Together, we can uncover the hidden truths of our world, protect it from threats beyond our imagination, and maybe, just maybe, change the course of human history. So if this tale has ignited your curiosity, if it's made you look at the world around you with new eyes, then my friends, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with everyone you know. Because together, we're not just explorers, we're the last line of defense for our reality. And remember, the next time you pass an abandoned building, a sealed-off tunnel, or even just a strange shimmer in the air, ask yourself, what secrets might be hiding just out of sight? What incredible discoveries are waiting for someone brave enough to look? This is Jack Thorne, signing off from the adventure of a lifetime. But don't worry, this is just the beginning. The world is full of mysteries, and I promise you, we're going to explore them all. So stay tuned, stay curious, and most importantly, stay vigilant. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop seeking the truth. Because the next great discovery, the next world-saving moment, could be just around the corner, and I want you there with me when we find it. Remember, in a world where realities collide, every day is an adventure, and every one of you is a potential hero. So join me, and let's make history together. This is Jack Thorne, your guide to the hidden wonders and dangers of our world, signing off. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your eyes open. You never know what you might find.